I invite you to bow your heads in prayer. Father God, I thank you for our town of Horsham. Thank you for our elected officials, the businesses, the families, the communities and the individuals that make our town the great place that it is. I pray your blessing on the leaders and councillors present here today, especially those that are newly elected and the officers and staff of the council. I thank you for the privilege of serving our town. I pray, Father God, that as they discuss their agenda and craft policies for our town and villages, that you will grant to them the guidance of your Spirit. May they never lead wrongly through love of power, desire to please, or unworthy ideals, but laying aside all private interests and prejudices, keep in mind their responsibility to seek to improve the condition of all. Remind them, Father, that we are in this position not to be served, but to serve, just as Christ, who is King, came not to be served, but to serve. Heavenly Father, I pray that they will have a productive meeting, that they will be able to discuss efficiently and effectively the important things. I also pray that you give them the grace to disagree constructively and to come up with the solutions that would best benefit the people they serve in Horsham. Amen.
Good. The meeting this evening is being live streamed and an audio recording being made. So can I ask that you switch your microphone on and speak clearly when addressing the council, and you may remain seated when you speak. In relation to all points of order, members will need to indicate first the rule and second the way in which it has been broken, as is required by the Constitution, and this will enable me to rule accordingly. So I do apologise for the warmth in this room. I think it's traditional to say that if you are wearing a jacket, you can take it off, and I don't have any objection with the warmth that we're experiencing at the moment. Apologies for absence. I have Councillor Emma Beard. Is there anybody else? Thank you. On pages 5 to 16, the minutes of the 26th of April and the 24th of May, if you've looked at those, there are two sets of minutes to be approved. I move the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 26th of April and of the annual Council meeting on the 24th be approved as correct records. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Emery. If a member indicates he or she wishes to speak, now is the time to do it. If not, and no one is going to comment on the accuracy of the minutes, are you agreed that I may sign the minutes as a correct record? Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest from members?
Chair,
Yes, Councillor Livingstone.
I have a direct interest in item number 8 on the agenda, and on advice of the monitoring officer, I will leave the room when it's been discussed.
Thank you, that's noted.
Chairman, could I ask if members say their names? Now, as we're not standing up, it's very difficult to see or hear who it is who's speaking. Would that be a possibility?
I think it's a great idea, actually, Councillor Kitchen. So if you, when you do speak, could you say who you are? I think it's important with new members, so I take that. I think it's a good idea, yeah. That was Councillor Livingstone, by the way. Just announcements. I have two announcements. One is that on Sunday it's Armed Forces Day, and there will be quite a lot of action in the Carfax throughout the day. It's been arranged by the British Legion, the Horsham branch, and it starts in the morning, and there will be bands playing, and I think there's some paratroopers and there's a veterans camp. There are various things going on, and can I encourage you to at least have a look and attend if you possibly can. I know that the Horsham branch of the Legion would be much appreciative of that, and at 2:45 we will be lowering the Armed Forces flag, and there will be a bugle call and a few speeches. Please stay for the speeches. I had to raise the flag on Monday morning at 7:45, and we had a few pigeons and several councillors, but it's difficult making a speech to that number. So if you are around and can attend, I think it would be absolutely great. Also, for those who are interested in flowers, and I think it is a wonderful festival, there's the Flower Festival at St Mary's this week, starting tomorrow until Sunday. The ladies of the town and surrounding villages do put on a fantastic show, and I think there are also some men who put their flowers in as well. So if you are at a loss to know what to do for the rest of this week, please come to St Mary's. Those are my announcements. Leader, do you have any announcements?
Thank you, Chair. No announcements. And I'm Councillor Boffey.
Good. Cabinet members' announcements. Councillor Milne, Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is an update to Council on the progress of the emerging local plan. At the start of this year, it was announced that Horsham's local plan would be postponed in the hope of cutting our house building targets, which by common consent are too high. So the question we have to consider now is, did that delay work? As was stated by then leader Councillor Claire Vickers, the decision to pause the plan was in light of Michael Gove's decision to consult on amendments to the National Planning Policy Framework, and we await clarification on the changes that he intends to make. In the 6 months since then, more than 50 other local authorities have also paused their plans. But as far as we're aware, no one has obtained a cut in numbers. Currently there are multiple planning reform consultations all going on simultaneously. Altogether, this makes for an incredibly confusing short-term environment in which we have to make very complex long-term decisions. Frankly, clarity is the last thing we have gained. As time goes by, the risk of unwanted speculative development increases. So far, they're mostly being held back by our water neutrality constraints, but we urgently need to know whether it's worth the risk of delaying any further. For a clearer picture of government intentions, I have written to Jeremy Quinn MP to request a meeting. I'm aware that he provided occasional advice and updates to the previous Conservative administration. Jeremy has publicly supported the Council's original decision to delay, so he must have thought that there was at least a chance government reform would come to our aid. Unfortunately, Jeremy has declined my invitation to meet. He stated that planning is a matter for the local authority, not the local MP. This is a very unexpected reply, and I hope he will reconsider in the interests of the community as a whole. In his letter, Jeremy noted that the previous administration commissioned specialist environmental and legal advice, which we should take note of. However, as I'm sure he's aware, HTC was explicitly directed not to delay in that advice, and that is the opposite of his own advice. So who's right? Lawyers can tell us the law, but only government ministers can tell us what's going on in government. During the local election campaign, many people were led to believe that housing targets aren't mandatory anymore, so we can simply make up our own figure. But the evidence nationally suggests our residents are being misled because it's not what's happening in practice. For example, in the public examination hearing for Manchester's plan, the Campaign for Rural England argued that Michael Gove's ministerial statement had legal weight and showed the government's clear intention for housing targets to be treated as an advisory starting point rather than mandatory. However, the planning inspector rejected this argument and stated that we must, and I quote, continue to apply national policy as it currently stands. Planning inspectors must apply the law as it currently exists. So unless we receive clear, unequivocal advice to the contrary, we have to assume our task is to operate within the same dysfunctional top-down planning system as before, but simply to make a better job of it. I welcome that challenge, and I will of course continue to update Council on our progress over the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Olsen. I'm excited to announce that events are back in Horsham Town Centre this summer, building on the success of the Coronation Weekend with later events earlier this year. We've listened to residents' feedback and know that you wanted to see more. So we're trialling various events throughout the summer. This includes the new Friday Lates with food and drink stalls and a variety of music on the Carfax Bandstand from 6 to 8 p.m. I've already been to 2, and they're certainly fun for everyone, young and old. In addition, we have introduced Museum Lates, also happening on Fridays, once a month throughout the summer. This is a chance to visit the exhibitions at the museum and also enjoy the beautiful garden alongside music and entertainment with extended opening hours. I was there for the launch last week Friday as well, another lovely event coinciding with Sussex Day, Morris dancers in Museum Garden. It was great. We have expanded the Saturday program of music in the town centre as well. New this summer, we have music performances in West Street on the first and last Saturdays of each month. These start in July. We also have more bands and music on the bandstand in the Carfax. Music is from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. every Saturday throughout the summer. New this summer on Sundays, we have Sunday lunches in the Carfax on the last Sunday of the month, with food and drink stalls along with music on the bandstand from 12 to 2. Big bands on Horsham Park Podium on Sundays 2 to 4 p.m. will continue again this year until the end of August. And finally, during the school summer holidays, as per previous years, there will be free children's entertainment on the Horsham Park Podium every Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, 2 p.m. to 3:15. Thank you very much to the events team for trialling these new events, and we hope to see a return to a lively town centre this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olsen. Councillor Sam Raby.
Thank you, Chairman. A very brief announcement, which is that the Wellbeing Hub, which had sadly had to move, has now got a new location, and the grand opening is going to be on the 1st of July. The officers and the contractors worked very hard to get that ready, and we've now got a location which is secure for 4 years. The Wellbeing Hub has been a brilliant way of engaging and helping our residents to make positive lifestyle changes and for health awareness, and that position on the high street is a great way of making that contact, because that's often the hardest part, is actually getting people through the door. It's a long-standing partnership with West Sussex County Council, and it's also part of the wider county health and wellbeing provision, and it'll be brilliant to see it coming into fruition, and hopefully everyone will be making use of it and letting residents know it's going to be there in Swan Walk for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raby. Chief Executive, do you have any announcements? No. Item 5, questions from the public. No questions relevant to the business of the meeting have been received. Item 6, on pages 17 and 18, there are recommendations from the Cabinet of 8th of June. On page 17, which is 6A, adoption of the Rusper Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan. I invite Councillor John Milne, Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure, to present this item and move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. Within Horsham District, there are 37 adopted conservation areas. As you may be aware, there's a legal duty placed on local planning authorities to designate conservation areas where appropriate, to review the designations regularly, and to plan for the management of conservation areas to ensure that they retain their special character and interest. Over recent years, therefore, the Council has been progressing a rolling programme of producing conservation area appraisals and management plans for each of these areas. In this respect, the existing Rusper Conservation Area has been reviewed. As part of this review, it was proposed that the conservation area be extended to include the gardens of Gill Manor to the north. This will be consistent with and enhance the character of the existing conservation area. Cabinet agreed on 29th of September 2022 to approve the draft conservation area appraisal and management plan for RUSPA for public consultation. A 5-week public consultation was consequently held between the 12th of January 2023 and the 16th of February. Following the exercise, one response was received from residents suggesting that the recreation field is included within the conservation area as it is a highly valued and sensitive part of the village. In response, it was decided not to include the recreation ground as the space does not have the specific historic or architectural interest to justify inclusion within a conservation area, although this does not detract from its importance in reinforcing the conservation area's rural setting or indeed its communal value. It is therefore recommended that Council approve the extension to the RUSPA conservation area and adopt the associated appraisal and management plan to help inform future planning decisions for developments within or adjoining the conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? I've got,
Yes, Councillor Fletcher.
I've got Councillor Liz Kitchen. I think you were seconding that, were you?
I'm happy to second it, Chairman, but I was also going to ask if I could make a comment, if that's...
All right. Well, in that case, I'll take Councillor Fletcher, who did raise her hand.
Yes, well, I'm happy to second that, and I'll speak at the end of the debate.
So, Liz, you have a chance now to say something.
It's Liz Kitchen here. I'm a member for Rusper and Colgate. I just wanted to say I totally accept it. I was a cabinet member where it was just. I was at the cabinet where it was discussed. But I would just like to put on my record, on record, the fact that myself and the other villagers particularly are disappointed that the recreation field wasn't involved. I don't think it'll come as any surprise to anybody here that it's not exactly of any historical interest, but it is a feature of the village, and actually backs onto the grounds of, or fronts onto the grounds of Gill Manor, which at the moment are an absolute mess, so let's hope somebody deals with that. That's all. I just wanted to put on record my disappointment that that wasn't involved. Otherwise, a thank you to everybody involved, because the rest is what we wanted.
Thank you, Liz. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? No. In that case, all those in favour of approving the recommendation... Oh, sorry, I've forgotten you.
Easily done, Councillor Fletcher.
My culpa, yeah.
I'm more than happy to second this motion. Rusper is a gorgeous place, and it needs and is well deserving of this conservation area. Pleased to see the extension, and I do note the concern amongst residents and councillors about the exclusion of the recreation ground, which was done on professional recommendation. However, I hope it is a reassurance to those who've not read it to know that in the Rusper adopted neighbourhood plan, under policy RUS 7, local green spaces, the recreational ground is designated as a local green space. This gives the land equivalent status to being part of the green belt when you're determining planning applications. So the policy is able to resist all development proposals that undermine the essential character of the designated area. And this is a high level of protection, which I hope is a reassurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, having had the proposal, the comments from the local councillor, Councillor Kitchen, and also from Councillor Ruth Fletcher, if there are no other comments, and I think I've seen everybody now, all those in favour of approving the recommendations on page 17 of the agenda, please show.
That's unanimous.
Good. In that case, the motion is carried, and thank you very much for the information. On page 18, the environmental health and licensing and economic development staffing. and I'm going to invite Councillor J Mercer, Cabinet Member for Environmental Health, Waste and Recycling, to present this item and move the recommendations.
It's okay. Thank you, Chairman. This item about environmental health arises particularly from the requirement in environmental health, because there is a significant increase in the demand for services, and this can no longer be contained within existing resources. In particular, the tragic death of 2-year-old Awab Ishak in Rochdale brought home the stark reality of the impact that mould in people's homes have, and his death has understandably led to an increase in complaints from people living in the private rented sector. It's also prompted action by the government, who will shortly be publishing new guidance on damp and mould in homes, which will place additional requirements on local authorities. We are also at the same time experiencing a sharp increase in the numbers of houses of multiple occupation, and in 2020 there were just 5 such in the district. Today there are 24, and there are at least 75 applications in the district that will need to go through the licensing process. And as the report sets out, the licensing of these properties is complex. It's forecast that the demands around the private sector housing will remain challenging, and therefore this recommendation around an increase in the salaries budget related to the environmental health team is entirely appropriate. And if I may, Chairman, I will pass over to my colleague, Councillor Ruth Fletcher, for the second part of the recommendation.
Thank you. Apologies for the nasty noise there. We're fortunate in the economic development team that we have. The team faces a key challenge over the next few years, however, arising from the older age profile of the 3 senior members of the team. The head of economic development and the 2 economic development officers are all approaching retirement age and are eligible for flexible retirement. We have an opportunity now to look at the succession planning for the team and ensure we maintain the resources needed to continue the essential business support. The measures proposed will help ensure a managed transition from the current senior officers in the team and allow an opportunity for junior officers to progress to senior positions in the organisation. The additional proposed temporary 2-year Assistant Economic Development Officer post will help to deliver the Shared Prosperity Fund. This post is aimed at those Year 2 and Year 3 projects that have been agreed in principle, but which do not yet have detailed project plans.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fletcher. Can I just be straight in my mind that, in fact, Councillor Mercer was proposing and you are seconding, is that correct?
If that's the appropriate way to deal with it, yes.
Well, I'll need a seconder for the original, so. Yeah, okay. In that case, do you want, well, you've spoken, so that's it. So can I throw the debate open now to those who wish to say anything about this? Yes, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I totally support both of these. Having had a young vulnerable family in Pulborough exposed to the mould and very severe problems in their flat, it was our team that went in and helped them tackle the social landlord, who were sadly lacking perhaps in acting with the alacrity that they should have, especially in view of the vulnerable health problems that the family suffered from. I won't go into detail on that. I'd also like to thank the ED team very much, because the economic development team were absolutely instrumental in helping the shops and the businesses in Pulborough during the A29 outage. Without their efforts and without their work, the impact of that might have been a lot worse. And, you know, they're absolutely star members of the team to have come up with all the solutions that they came up with. They will be a very hard act to follow when they retire. So I think it's a very good idea to get younger people in to learn as much as they can from these very experienced officers. So I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? In that case, I'm going to put this to the vote. All those in favour of approving the recommendations on page 18 of the agenda, please show. I don't think there's anyone against, and there are no abstentions, so the motion is carried. Item 7, page 19, is the recommendations from committees and Overview and Scrutiny Committee's Annual Report 22-23 and the Scrutiny Work Programme 23-24. And I'm going to call upon Councillor Paul Clark, Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, to introduce this item and move the recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Having just taken over the role in a very short period of time, all I can say is the annual report was provided by my predecessor, Tony Bevis, and outlined what a number of jobs that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee had done, inclusive of one that we worked on together, you, Chairman, and myself, and Councillor Circus and others, to do with the role of consultants and looking at the role of consultants in the council, and I thought it was a very good piece of work. Essentially now the report is also looking at the forward plan, and the next meeting, which we will have on the 17th of July, will take that forward. At this point in time, the committee has only met once and is basically learning its job. So I move that we note the annual report and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee's forward plan, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Is there a seconder? Thank you. I think this item is for noting. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? If not, you're asked to note the contents, and I trust you all agreed. You can say agreed if you like. Thank you. The next item, temporary appointment of councillors to parish councils. I think this is your time to exit, Councillor Livingston. I'm going to invite the Chief Executive to present this item.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm the Chief Executive of the Council, Jane Eaton. Since the uncontested election at Nuthurst Parish Council on the 4th of May, several councillors have resigned from that council. This made the parish council inquorate, with only 3 members out of a possible 11 remaining. This left the parish council unable to co-opt on any new members or transact any business. This report proposes that Horsham District Council assist Nuthurst Parish Council by temporarily appointing Councillor Livingston, who represents Nuthurst Parish Council area, onto the parish council. With Councillor Livingston on the council, it will be quorate and can then co-opt on new members, allowing ordinary business to resume. As the appointment is only temporary, to allow the co-option, Councillor Livingston will immediately step down once the new parish councillors are in place. This report recommends Council approve the temporary appointment of Councillor Livingston to Nuthurst Parish Council and authorise the making of an order to allow Councillor Livingston's appointment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a proposer for this motion, please? Councillor Mercer, thank you. Is there a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Boffey. I'm assuming no one wishes to speak on this item, but I'm obviously open to anyone making a comment if they so wish. Otherwise, all those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 21 of the agenda, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 9, updates to Policy Development Advisory Group membership, representatives on outside bodies and membership to committees, pages 27 to 44. I invite the interim monitoring officer to present this item.
Thank you, Chairman. Very briefly, this report is largely for noting, but it does contain one request for approval. As such, councillors are asked, first of all, to note the following matters. Number 1, the appointment of cabinet members and the changes in the portfolios. Number 2, that the constitution will be updated to reflect the changes in the cabinet and the cabinet portfolios. Number 3, the councillor appointments to outside bodies. And number 4, the changes in the membership to the Licensing and Standards Committee. The detail of the aforementioned appointments and updates is contained in the relevant appendices to this report for your review. Secondly, councillors are asked to approve the programme of meetings for the Policy Development Advisory Groups, which is set out in Appendix 3 to this report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a proposer for this motion? Councillor Boffey. Would you like to speak to this motion?
Only to confirm that we have someone to second it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And is there a seconder? Councillor Philip Circus, thank you very much indeed. Again, I'm assuming that no one wishes to speak on this item, but on the other hand, I would like to be 100% sure. So if you're in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. I don't think any against or any abstentions. So the motion is carried. Item 10, on pages 45 to 54, the pay policy statement for 2023 to 2024, and I invite Councillor Martin Boffey, Leader of the Council, to present this item.
Thank you, Chairman. This report seeks members' approval to the Council's pay policy statement for the financial year 2023-24. The Localism Act 2011 contains provisions obliging local authorities to prepare pay policy statements which must be approved by a resolution of full council. A pay policy statement sets out several matters, for example, the remuneration of chief officers and the remuneration of its lowest employees, and the relationship between the remuneration of its chief officers and employees who are not chief officers. The pay policy statement has been updated to comply with these requirements and to incorporate changes to pay points as a result of the nationally agreed pay settlement and increases in the living wage, national living wage and various bands of the national minimum wage. These updates are the only changes to the statement since the previous year. Accordingly, I propose that the Council's pay policy statement for the 23-24 financial year is approved for publication.
Thank you, Councillor Boffey. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Mark Bainham, thank you. In that case, I'm opening up the room for debate. Should there be any comments? Are you all agreed, therefore, that the recommendation on page 45 of the agenda should be adopted? Thank you. Item 9, on pages 55 to 58, we've got the appointment of the Head of Legal and Democratic Services and Monitoring Officer. I invite Councillor Martin Boffey, Leader and Chairman of the Employment Committee, to introduce this item.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Returning members will be aware that the previous Head of Legal and Democratic Services and Monitoring Officer departed from her role with the Council in December last year to take up a role with another authority. Since that time, Lauren Kelly has filled the role on an interim basis. This report seeks members' approval to the appointment of Lauren Kelly as Head of Legal and Democratic Services and Monitoring Officer. Local authorities are obliged legally to appoint a monitoring officer. Monitoring officers are largely responsible for reporting on matters they believe to be illegal or amount to maladministration, matters relating to the conduct of councillors, and the operation of the council's constitution. Lauren Kelly joined the council in June 2018 from the private sector and has acted up on an interim basis in this role for nearly 6 months. As that interim appointment was coming to an end shortly, the Employment Committee met to consider options for filling the role. The committee was of the view that Lauren is a strong candidate who has performed well in the role on an interim basis, and it also considered external advice
received previously, which shows that the market for such roles is challenging and that suitable candidates were scarce. Given the state of the market and the fact we have a strong internal candidate ready to take over immediately, the committee concluded the appropriate course of action was to forego the option of undergoing full recruitment and selection process nationally, which could prove costly with no guarantee of delivering any benefit. I would also like to add how pleased I am personally that this provides a further opportunity to demonstrate how well this council has done at developing its people internally, such that we are able to promote from within in this way, thus rewarding their efforts and recognising their achievements. Accordingly, I propose that Council notes the Employment Committee's nomination of Lauren Kelly as the Head of Legal and Democratic Services and Monitoring Officer, agrees the appointment of Lauren Kelly to the position of Head of Legal Democratic Services with effect from the 22nd of June, and agrees the designation of Lauren Kelly as Monitoring Officer of Horsham District Council with effect from the 22nd of June 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Boffey. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Circus.
Thank you very much, Chairman. When we had a meeting of the Employment Committee, we were told that lawyers in local government need to be cherished. I have to say, local government must be the only place in the country where it is thought lawyers should be cherished. And the reason for that is they are considered an endangered species. That there are very few lawyers who want to work in local government, and I mean, being a member of an endangered species myself, following the election, I have to say that I have some sympathy with others who can be regarded as an endangered species. But if I can be serious for a moment, it gives me great pleasure, Chairman, to support Lauren's candidature for this position. I hope Council will endorse her appointment. I make only one caveat. It's always been my... I've always enjoyed, with previous monitoring officers, the advantage, being a lawyer myself, of actually having occasional discussions on difficult points of law, and I hope Lauren won't object to my turning up at her desk and asking her about difficult points of law. But subject to that, I'm very pleased to endorse and support her appointment, and I hope Council will agree with that appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. Is there anybody who wishes to speak after those two recommendations? In that case, would you show your approval for the recommendations on page 55 of the agenda? Well, I think that's unanimous. So congratulations on your appointment. Thank you. Item 10 is the reports of representatives. We have members on outside bodies. I know that Councillor Kitchen is going to provide us with a statement concerning GATCOM, so over to Councillor Kitchen.
Well, it was going to be a statement, Chairman, but I think anybody who's listened to the local news today will already have heard the news that Gatwick Airport have put in their application, or are about to put in their application, to the for a development consent order, which is commonly known as a DCO, for the development of the emergency runway into a second runway at Gatwick. And the planning inspectorate have apparently 28 days to decide whether they're going to hear this application or not. And what I'm really pleased to say is that local authorities collectively around Gatwick, and that includes Surrey and Sussex local authorities, have been working together to submit their comments on it. but also individual local authorities, and that of course includes our own local authority, are working hard on this. At this stage, I'd particularly like to thank Carol Algar and Lee Money, Environmental Health and Planning, who have put in hours of time on this with absolutely no help from the Gatwick people at all. They've had to sort out, and I understand go through pounds and pounds and pounds of paper work to get there. So I would like to thank them for doing that. GATCOM itself actually will not be making much of a comment on this because it is a consultative committee. It's not a committee that comes up with decisions, and because of its setup, which is everybody around it, the airlines, the local authorities, the local areas, the business people, they'll never come to a consensus on this or anything else going back in the past of the second terminal and all the rest of it. So they won't make a decision, but it's nonetheless always at the heart of any GATCOM meeting that we have. It's the underlying thing. Horsham District Council decided, and as you all here who know me, now I haven't got a clue on time, but they decided a few years back that we would oppose the second runway, or emergency runway turning into another one, which will have a huge environmental effect on our district, not just with the noise, which will maybe not quite double, I don't want to exaggerate, but it will be very, very much more than we've got at the moment. The infrastructure, of course, we all know about, is inadequate anyway. So the implications for our district, leaving aside the economic ones, which we all know are huge, and in no way am I, or I don't think anybody here, anti-Gatwick. We're just anti-Gatwick getting too big and too environmentally unfriendly. But this is just a starting point, and either myself or probably the cabinet member for planning will keep you involved as to where we're going in the future. But thank you, Chairman, for letting me make that point.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kitchen. I think it's obviously a cause for concern, and we'll have to see how it plays out. I have Councillor Clive Trott also wishes to make a statement in his role as champion of the armed forces.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Trott. Okay. It's a good time to reset.
Oh, it's gone
okay,
right.
we need to be back on. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just to firstly echo your points about the Armed Forces Day, which will take place on Sunday. It's important to emphasise the Sunday because most places are doing it on Saturday. We're doing it on Sunday to deconflict with Crawley as resources are being shared. There will be lots of activities, and the one message from the Royal British Legion and the cadet forces who have worked very hard to make this happen is that this is a celebration, not a commemoration, and should in no way be seen as Remembrance Day light or similar. But there are lots of activities planned, and it's Sunday, not Saturday, as is Crawley. I would also very, very briefly like to report back on a meeting, on the briefing from the Southeast Forces Reserve, Southeast Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, SERFCA, who recently did a briefing, and there was some interesting data that came out. They're extremely keen to promote the benefits of working with the armed forces and associated organisations, and the positive aspects that can have on the community. But two statistics that came out that were very interesting. 4.3% of the population of Horsham district are veterans, which I found quite a staggering statistic. However, conversely, there are only 257 reservists in the whole of Sussex, East and West. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trott. I'm afraid I'm too old to be a reserve. Are there any other comments that people would like to make if they've been to outside bodies? No. Which brings us to item 11, notice of motion, We've received a notice of motion in accordance with Rule 4A14 of the Constitution. I invite Councillor Mike Croker to present his motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I trust that members have read the proposed motion. Hopefully what I say next will convince them of the need for it. Almost 35 years ago to the day, a US congressional committee heard NASA's James Hansen stating with 99% confidence that greenhouse warming is happening now. At that time, the concentration of atmospheric carbon dioxide was around 350 parts per million, and global surface temperature was around 0.5 degrees C above pre-industrial levels. Last year, carbon dioxide was around 420 parts per million and temperature 1.1 degrees above pre-industrial levels. And still such warnings are being played down despite irrefutable evidence. Indeed, the International Panel on Climate Change, in their recent AR6 synthesis report, have essentially said, that's it, no more from us until the end of the decade, this is happening, we've told you what to do, deal with it. Back in 2019, when this council said, we agree that there is a growing public concern in the face of recent dire warnings from the world scientific community that we are facing a wide range of environmental issues, including a climate emergency. The best estimates were that to have a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees of global warming, only a further 550 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent could be released into the atmosphere. Over the intervening 4 years, humanity has released around 1/3 of that figure, hence the emergency. However, I really don't want to dwell on the inadequacies of the 2019 motion, as time is short and we need to put our efforts into what comes next. Of course, this is a global problem that requires global action by all, so Horsham District needs to do its bit. This council's own operations have made some significant carbon reductions over the last 4 years, but these have been easy wins. The hard and potentially costly in financial terms changes have yet to be materially addressed, although I must acknowledge the good work of officers in implementing the policy directions that they have received. Action by the district as a whole, though, has been patchy at best, hence my request to prioritise meaningful community engagement via the draft Climate Action Strategy, which I hope members have read. The subtitle of the action strategy is Towards Carbon Neutrality and Climate Resilience, and part of that resilience must be directed at keeping the natural world in good health, recognising that we are part of it, as it is widely accepted that we are experiencing the start of the 6th mass extinction. I must therefore recognise the sterling work of the Wilder Horsham project and this council's commitment to the Will to Waves project, both of which endeavour to defragment our wilder spaces to enable the natural world to adapt. I'd also like to express a local hope that Bramber Brooks might soon join this council's portfolio of protected spaces. In summary, this new council needs to commit to acting faster to reduce its contribution to climate change, expand its work to address the associated ecological emergency, and rapidly devise and implement an action plan to engage, activate and support residents in what must be a joint quest. I hope that members will support this motion for the reasons I have outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Croker. Is there a seconder for the motion?
I second the motion. Colette Blackburn.
Thank you, Councillor Colette Blackburn. Do you want to speak now or later in the debate?
I'll speak at the end, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. In that case, the debate is open to any member who wishes to speak. Councillor Circus.
I have to say, Chairman, that I find this motion rather strange. It denigrates the 2019 motion, which was a far more expansive motion in terms of environmental challenges, and that's why we amended the motion that we were given at that time by the Liberal Democrat opposition. Interestingly, the proposer of this motion did not vote against the motion as we amended it, nor did the leader of the council, Councillor Boffey. Both of them neither of them opposed in their voting that motion, which is interesting. If it was such an unsatisfactory motion, one has to ask why they didn't oppose it at that stage.
Point of clarification, Councillor Seggers, I was not a district councillor in 2019.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You just give me the impression that you've been here forever. But certainly Councillor Croker, the proposer of this motion, certainly he did not vote against our amendments to the motion. It seems to me, I read in this motion, recognising the delay that has already occurred in encouraging meaningful carbon reductions across the district. The truth of it is, we've had an action plan, we've had a challenging action plan, and we've had an ambitious target, ambitious when compared with other local authorities. And it seems to me that what we've got here is a situation which is essentially a PR stunt. There is nothing specific in this motion, nothing specific, a lot of woolly words designed to denigrate the last Conservative administration, nothing specific about what the proposers of the motion would have done differently, nothing actually very specific about what they would do in the future. There's no plan of action here. We had a plan of action, and it was approved at the March cabinet meeting. And I think it reflects, to be honest, although the proposer of the motion talks about the staff, I think this doesn't reflect well on the staff. I think it is, the staff have gone beyond the call of duty, and I don't think it's a good reflection on the work that both councillors and officers put into this subject. But finally, there is the issue that if the proposers of this motion think we should be doing more than we're doing, and we already have an ambitious plan and an ambitious target, one has to ask where the extra money is going to come from. Because the sort of money that we're talking about for the existing plans is something of the order of £20 million. If we're going to spend more than £20 million, it behoves the proposers of this motion, Chairman, to give us some indication where that money is going to come from. Is it going to come from a magic money tree? Is it going to come from cutting public services? And if it's going to come from cutting public services, then I think, Chairman, we ought to know where those cuts are going to be made. In short, Chairman, we think this is a totally unnecessary motion. It proposes nothing specific. It points to nothing specific. It's just a vague, woolly attack on the previous administration's very positive action on this subject. Leaves, and I think it's been done, frankly, for PR purposes, and therefore I don't think Council, frankly, should support this evening. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Serkis. Would anyone else like to speak on this one? I've got out here. Oh yes, Councillor Trollope, sorry, I've got to check your photograph against your name.
I just wanted to speak very quickly. I support the proposal, but I think in a sense it's irrelevant, in the sense that as councillors we should be doing everything that we can possibly do to help preserve the environment, to have more green spaces, to have a cleaner place to live in. I don't think we need to predicate those activities on whether or not you believe in climate change or not. We need to have a clean place in which to live. That's all I wish to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have with me the document from 2019, and I was reading it this afternoon, and in the very forward, in the first two paragraphs, it says, in 2019, Horsham District Council formally recognised the global environmental crisis and commit to becoming carbon neutral by 2030. It goes on to say, the Council has committed to achieving carbon neutrality for the whole district by 2050. I would ask my friend if he could explain to me what is wrong with that and what he would do more than that, and in doing so, what does the declaration intend to achieve by way of goals and targets, and in what timescale, and what actions will be taken to achieve these goals, and as my friend just asked, what the cost of those are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manton. Councillor Fisher.
I support this motion entirely because there is a climate and ecological emergency, and we need to have a declaration by Horsham District Council stating that. It's way behind. I've acknowledged the work of the officers who've worked very hard within this. As a parish councillor, I was the representative from the south of the district at a climate group designed to come up with how to get Horsham District Council climate carbon net zero by 2050. That was closed. It was chaired by Councillor Serkis, and it was closed without any thanks or proper finishing, and there was no meaningful input into it. There was also a motion brought by the Lib Dems in the last administration for a citizens' assembly, which was also not voted through. We need urgent action on this, and this is a statement that HDC is absolutely committed to recognising the dire state that humanity and the planet is in, and I urge the Council to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Let's just put that on. Thank you, Councillor Dennis. I mean, I concur and I agree with everything that Councillor Serkis said. You actually say it in the motion. Given that the new leader has already stated that he's taking real action to combat these, will not only be an immediate priority but an ever-present consideration, why do we then need a motion? Is this not just virtue signalling?
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you. I have spoken on this topic before. I was in part behind the motion to expand engagement with the Citizens' Assembly. I disagree with Councillor Serkis' assessment of the previous motion on this topic in 2019, as did third parties, which really questioned what had Horsham done back then. When you became a councillor, you didn't recognise that you were a councillor, and and get elected. You made a declaration. You didn't recognise that you're now a councillor. You made a clear and emphatic declaration, which I don't feel that this council did in 2019, regardless of what's been now put on documents, but you can go back and listen to the transcripts or read the minutes. Regarding the current draft climate change strategy, I was disappointed in the process to arrive at that initial draft, disappointed by statements made and not adhered to by past councillors, disappointed in how long it took to begin the process, and I was disappointed in the limited engagement of the community, which I felt could have begun sooner and been more. So, I mean, ask your community now, do they know that we have this draft climate change strategy? I doubt that at the moment, unfortunately. But moving forward, I have absolute confidence in my colleague Councillor Blackburn, the new Cabinet Member for Climate Action and Nature Recovery, the many new members of this council who publicly stated their commitment to addressing climate change, as well as our officers who, with new enthusiastic direction, can help our community engage on this issue and meet our targets, fulfill the aims of this motion, and ultimately save our future. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Utah.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've obviously read the motion. Can I just say that I feel it slightly confusing because, as it's stated, it completely negates the extreme hard work that has been done by both the previous administration and also the officers, and that is repaired in some shape or form by sudden recognition from the proposer, Councillor Croker, that the officers have worked hard. We have a dedicated officer who has worked extremely hard for this, and if my memory serves me correctly, the main thrust of the discussion in 2019 was whether it was going to be declared an emergency or a crisis, and it was thought to be better that it should be a crisis, because an emergency was not deemed to be the correct terminology. I still feel that that is probably quite true, because an emergency is something that occurs immediately and very quickly, whereas a crisis is ongoing, which is exactly what we have. I agree with my fellow councillors that I think it's a meaningless virtue-signaling motion, so I won't support it. Thank you very much. But I would hasten to add that I am extremely, extremely keen on doing our bit to, as much as we can, to reduce our carbon usage. Extremely keen, and also protecting flora and fauna. Absolutely 100% on board for it, and I always have been. Thank you.
You hear Councillor Utah. I have Councillor Mill.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Mill. Yes, I also remember that debate about crisis and emergency, which I thought was one of the larger wastes of time right at the start of my my office as a councillor. I thought we gained nothing from it. The big issue here is the difference between direct and indirect emissions. Direct emissions, i.e. the council's own emissions, are about 1% of the district. The other 99% are not under our control. The previous administration took lots of action on the 1%, the direct emissions, and good work was done by officers, and great progress was made. However, no progress was made at all on the other 99%, and we only need to look at the maths to realise how serious that is, because we're never going to reach net zero when we haven't even started on the great bulk of it. So the plan, the draft plan, which is of action, which has been brought in the 11th hour of the last administration. There's 4 years have gone by, and finally we get it such that it ends up being the work of the next council. So that is the big missed opportunity. We can't get back the last 4 years, so we just have to go even faster now and do the best we can from this point forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mill. Councillor Roger Noel.
Thank you, Chair. I have to disagree with the facts that Councillor Milne has just given us, but sorry. I have to say that I totally agree with the facts that Councillor Croker has given us tonight. There is a crisis. we are all aware of the situation in the world, and we're aware that it's getting worse and worse daily. The last administration devoted much time and money, and has already been stated, had a dedicated officer as our lead, and we actually achieved far more than expected. Our direct carbon reduction scheme achieved over 60% reduction in direct carbon emissions. Better, I believe, than any other council in the South East, certainly the best in West Sussex, and over twice the amount that Brighton and Hove Council achieved over the same period. And I believe it was actually led by a Green Council at the time. So, therefore, I find the conclusion of Mike Councillor Croker's statement disingenuous and has slightly underestimated the efforts of our officers and the last administration. Sorry, just to finish off, for those reasons, I can't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Did I see another hand? Councillor Boffin.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We're still talking about the difference between a crisis and an emergency. Okay. I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge, but you know the Cambridge English Dictionary definition: an extremely difficult or dangerous point in a situation is a crisis. An emergency is not a point in time, it's something that you're facing every day and you're going to face for a considerable time to come until you actually do something about it and resolve it. Emergency, it seems to be in some quarters, the thing that dare not speak its name. What is the problem with declaring a climate emergency? Is there one or isn't one? There is, so let's say so. I'm not going to get too wrapped up in too much of the detail on this because other people have spoken about it already, but you know, get over it and accept there is a climate emergency, pass the motion and let's move on. As for the point that 4 years ago we had a plan, well, no, you didn't have a plan. You sort of came up with a plan to spend 4 years coming up with a plan to develop a plan, which is kind of the point we're at the moment. The £20 million, I'm not too sure exactly where that was coming from, but I believe that's the projected possible cost of dealing with the council's direct and possibly secondary emissions, not the whole district. It's going to be way, way more than that. So no, the council's not going to pay for it, right? How's it going to get done? People out there are going to do it. How are we going to achieve that? Engaging with them and promoting for all people in all walks of life, in all forums to actually take the action. So I don't personally accept this assertion that it's virtue signalling or it's just a PR stunt. But even if it was a PR stunt, what's the problem with that? We need PR to actually get this done. So this is all just baffling, this continuous resistance to sort of accept that there is an emergency and maybe we should just say so. Let's get on with it, get it done, pass the motion and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boffin. Councillor Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Eastwood. Thank you. As an independent, I guess I don't get involved in all this party political stuff, but I do get involved in the climate emergency and have done as the chairman of the Horsham Association of Local Councils. And I wouldn't like it to be placed on record the good work that the officers have been doing on this matter, and particularly Helen Peacock. I believe the council started to get its internal work and act together and did some good work, and we have now taken that out to the parishes through a series of workshops working with Wilder Horsham and also on climate change itself. So a lot of good work has been done, the idea being to try and link those workshops and the parishes into the good work being done locally by lots of organisations who do take this subject very seriously. So I think we just need to acknowledge that that's not about statements, that's about people getting out there and actually doing stuff and getting stuff done. A lot has happened on that, not politically, just hard work being done. I have no issue with a motion that declares a climate emergency, that's fine. This motion for me is too woolly, and it seems to look at some political point scoring. This is not a political subject, this is a subject for all of us to tackle sensibly, and to work with all the communities, whether it's the parishes, the district or the county, to join everybody up to do some things to help solve this issue, which is important for all of us. So I can't support the motion as it's written because I believe it's too political, and it should be more straightforward. Declare the emergency, then let's get together some increased actions to try and make everybody aware and doing stuff to improve things.
Thank you, Councillor Eastwood. We have, well, I'm coming to the end of the debate. If you're happy to pass to the seconder, then I think I'm going to ask her to speak now.
Hello everyone, Colette Blackburn here. Thank you, Councillor Croker, for bringing this motion to Council today. I'm delighted to second it. It is fitting that the motion has been brought to the first Council meeting of this new administration. We intend to make Horsham an example of how to engage positively with the adjustments we must all make in order to mitigate the worst of the damage temperature rise can cause. And alongside this, we intend to protect our countryside and waterways so that wildlife, plants and all of nature can thrive. Needless destruction is stopped and conserving our surroundings is the norm. We believe we can all live longer, healthier, happier lives when we not only respect our surroundings but actively participate in nature recovery and carbon reduction. As we've heard here tonight, the climate action work being undertaken at HDC is the direct result of the motion brought in June 2019. I'm sure everyone here has read the draft strategy, but if you'll just forgive me, I'm going to give some context. The strategy was produced by the Council's previous administration in collaboration with 2 expert consultants, Useful Projects and One Planet. It was a good start by all involved, but has been moving forwards too slowly. The strategy specifies and quantifies actions in the immediate, mid and long term, and was informed by workshops with key officers from HDC, along with panels of experts from West Sussex County Council, Sussex Nature Partnership, South East Climate Alliance, Great South East Net Zero Hub, the National Farmers Union and Southern Water. Further, at HDC we are in an important partnership with the Sussex Wildlife Trust called Wilder Horsham District. My own sense of responsibility for nature recovery is anchored in Lib Dem policy dating back to 2009 to create wildlife corridors, and Wilder Horsham District has been creating and mapping these networks for nearly 3 years now. The corridors, which allow our wildlife, seeds, plants, nutrients and water to move from place to place, are essential to reconstructing a healthy environment for our residents. Without them, efforts already made may become isolated and may fail. Connecting the large network of wildlife habitats throughout the Horsham district is vital work. Regarding the mid to long-term aspirations within the strategy, examples of these are the launch of a residential retrofit programme, the increase in incentivising of investment in small-scale renewable energy generation and battery storage, and the exploration of opportunities and feasibility of creating a mobility hub in Horsham Town Centre. Devising funding strategies will also play a key part in future climate objectives, as councillors have pointed out this evening. I have been visiting local communities over the past few weeks to see some of the efforts that are being made. There is an impressive number and variety of initiatives which demonstrate the understanding and the appetite among our residents to confront difficult realities and get on with finding positive solutions, none of which involve a hair shirt. We will support these efforts in every way that we can because we know that for HDC, tackling climate change will rely almost completely on working with organisations and communities that are outside of our direct control. This council will show leadership, but we only control emissions of 1 to 2% of the whole district. This is why community engagement is vital, starting with this draft strategy, which we are very keen to check for gaps or barriers in order to take an actual strategy forward as soon as possible. I am overseeing a plan to survey Horsham District's residents to check assumptions within the draft strategy. The survey will run from June 26th until August 31st. For this, there will be extensive promotion using all communication channels and teaser prompts, including advertisements in local magazines, an article in our district magazine, social media and posters and banners in key locations, as well as articles in the e-newsletters that the Council distributes. In July, we will be procuring specialist support to help with targeted engagement. It is important that we consult and engage people throughout our communities, particularly those who do not normally engage on this topic, or maybe any topic. Families, young families in particular, who might be time poor, and young people, for example. The targeted engagement with these groups of people will then take place in September. Focus group work will be an integral part of this. There will be a separate consultation stream for our business community. Finally, may I ask all councillors to take on board that success with climate change and nature recovery is essential for the health, happiness and future prosperity of people throughout the district. We have the evidence that many of our residents are already changing behaviour and are proactive in working to protect our important nature and wildlife, as well as reclaim, repair, recycle and repurpose whatever they can. It is our responsibility to support them in this, and as a result, climate action and nature recovery should be factored into all disciplines and decision making in the same way as budgeting is. This will enable the quickest route to a more modern, healthy and progressive lifestyle and a respected and protected environment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Croker, you have the right, as mover of the motion, to speak for a second time. Whether or not you wish to, I don't know, but you have that right.
I do, briefly, Chairman. I'll keep it very brief, though. I have to say, from my recollection, and recently checking the record, I did not support the 2019 motion. I should make it clear that I did not support the 2019 motion. And I did not support the 2019 motion. Thank you. And I'd also like to thank the Cabinet Member for Climate Action and Nature Recovery for her detailed explanation of what's coming now and her enthusiasm for getting on with what is going to be a very difficult task for this Council. That'll do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Croker. That brings us to the vote on the motion that is before you. You have it, you've read it, you've heard it debated. Can I ask that all those in favour of this motion please show? Four. I've got that right now. Thank you very much. All those against? And abstentions, obviously. I will abstain. In that case, the motion is carried conclusively. Thank you. It brings us on to item 14, members' questions on notice. In the Constitution, the time allowed for questions must not exceed 30 minutes without the consent of the Council, and that's Rule 4A13. That's important, please bear that in mind. we have 4 questions. 30 minutes for 4 questions, unless this council desires to go on longer. So I'm going to take the questions, and then at 30 minutes we're going to make a decision as to whether you want to carry on or whether in fact there will be recommendations written and replies given that way. So we have a question on notice from Councillor Paul Clark. You have 2 minutes in which to ask Councillor Ruth Fletcher, Cabinet Member for Local Economy and Place, your question.
Thank you, Chairman. There's been a concern in the press recently about the ability of multi-storey car parks to cope with the increased weight of passenger vehicles with the adoption of EV technology and the purchasing of said vehicles. Several car parks are reported to be unable to accept a large number of EV vehicles as the structural load-bearing beams cannot take it. We in HDC depend heavily on our car park income. We have 2 large multi-storey car parks, Swan Walk and Peary's Place. The former is a lot older than the latter. Have our 2 multi-storey car parks been assessed as to their suitability to accommodate larger amounts of EV vehicles over the next years? And if a study has taken place, what were the conclusions? And if it hasn't taken place, will we be conducting such a study?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Ruth Fletcher. Have 2 minutes.
Sorry. Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Clark. This is a good opportunity, I hope, to reassure you and also many residents who will have also heard the reports in the press from elsewhere. A structural engineer's report commissioned in 2017 indicated that the Swan Walk, Forum and Peary's Place car parks would have been designed to the British standard at the time of construction, which assumed a maximum weight of cars of 2,500 kilograms. The nature of the way that car parks are designed is that even if the car park is full of very heavy cars, there is a sufficient factor of safety. Peary's Place car park, the old car park was subsequently demolished. The new one was opened in 2019 and was built to higher structural standards. For information, even the heavier electric cars, such as Tesla Model S and Porsche Taycan, weigh less than 2,500 kilograms. Very heavy vehicles, electric or otherwise, would of course be too large to fit into the standard parking places provided in either Swan Walk or the Forum car parks, although they do fit into the wider spaces in Peary's Place car park. We are confident that our car parks can accommodate such vehicles safely.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Did you wish to answer supplementary?
Pardon?
Did you wish to ask a supplementary question?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you very much. And you didn't want to make a final statement?
No, it was a genuine question. Sorry. It wasn't political, it was genuine interest.
I appreciate your response to my genuine question, so that's very kind. We have a question on notice from Councillor Philip Serkis. Councillor Serkis, you have 2 minutes in which to ask Councillor Boffey, the Leader of the Council, your question.
And this is a genuine question too, Chairman. Will the Leader of the Council accept that an early opportunity should be sought to review the Council's constitution, given the weaknesses in its drafting that have become apparent?
Councillor Boffey.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Serkis, for your question. You will recall that we discussed the issue of a constitutional review when you and I met recently, and I am grateful, therefore, to you for raising this very relevant and important question at this evening's meeting. As we know, the Constitution is the Council's rulebook and sets out, amongst other things, the Council's functions, responsibilities, processes and procedures, decision-making systems and members' code of conduct. It goes without saying that a good constitution provides an anchor for strong organisational and political cultures in which people work well together and in which decision making is well understood by and visible to the public. Indeed, the law provides that local authorities must have up-to-date constitutions and I note it is considered good practice to undertake a fundamental review every 5 years. I understand the last full review was carried out in 2016 with its findings adopted in December of that year. As such, we are clearly due for a fundamental review in the near future in any case. To clarify my reference to near future and also to respond partly to what you were raising about an early date, I would estimate the undertaking of such an exercise in approximately 6 to 12 months' time. The reason for this is that given the large turnover of members in the recent elections, I think it would be prudent to afford new members sufficient time to work with and familiarise themselves with the Constitution. Naturally, this will allow members to input into any review in a meaningful and informed manner. I think we would likely agree that Council is not the forum to examine the granular detail of any constitutional strengths and required modifications to reflect any organisational or structural changes, political shifts and legal clarifications. Indeed, it would be premature to do so prior to commissioning any formal, detailed and coordinated analysis. In terms of undertaking a review, I think it would be sensible to enlist the support of the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny and our Governance Committee, which I suspect will wish to appoint a streamlined working group to take the lead on this initiative. May I thank you for raising formally this question, the subject of which I'm sure you know is close to my heart.
Thank you, Councillor Boffey. Councillor Circus, supplementary.
Yes, given that the Constitution, thank you, Leader, for that. Given that the Constitution is owned in a very real sense by every member of this Council, it's the Council's Constitution, will he give us comfort in assuring us that he will get the widest possible involvement in the review of the Constitution, and particularly that use will be made of those members who've had a lot of experience without any undue regard to party affiliation? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Boffey.
I always think it's folly in life not to make use of the knowledge and experience of those, particularly in technical fields. All I would say is that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get what they want.
Councillor Circus, would you like to make a final statement?
Well, thank you for that rather uncertain response there. I'm not quite sure what to take from that final comment. But the last time we reviewed, as you will remember, Chairman, because you were a member and I was a member, and it makes sense to have the widest participation. I think I'm right in saying that that any task and finish group would not be subject to party political balance. I'm looking at our monitoring officer to see whether...
that to be the case.
Yeah, so I do hope the leader will take this very much to heart and get the widest involvement so we get the best constitution that we can achieve on behalf of all the members of this council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. I think the Chairman is on the Governance Committee, so would appreciate a place with you in your group.
I don't make any legal decisions without taking extensive legal advice, so I'll get back to you on that.
We have received a question on notice from Councillor Alan Manton. Councillor Manton, you have 2 minutes in which to ask Councillor Boffey, the Leader of the Council, your question.
Thank you, Chairman. Does the Leader feel that those appointed to represent Horsham District Council on outside bodies should not be chosen on the basis of party allegiance, but on the basis of the best qualifications to represent the Council, including knowledge and experience?
Thank you, Councillor Manton, for your question. Yes, it's Councillor Boffey answering, thanks. I do agree with the thrust of this question, although I would couch it slightly differently. In my opinion, knowledge and experience are not in themselves qualifications, but rather attributes or qualities. One can be qualified by experience, but experience is not in itself a qualification. Indeed, there are no specific qualifications required for any of the roles to which he refers, other than being a member of Horsham District Council. I do believe that representatives on outside bodies should be chosen based on their qualities and attributes and how these align with the requirements of the role. These roles are all different. Some of them lend themselves to people with specific skills, knowledge or experience. Others are better suited to members with a keen interest in certain areas or disciplines. Others still require members who can have more direct influence over areas of council policy and operations, such as cabinet members, the chairman, or the Armed Forces champion. Finally, some roles would clearly benefit from having a representative from a given ward or area. When I decided on my appointments as leader, I believe I considered and weighed all the different factors in play for each role before coming to a decision, sometimes consulting with the outside body in question. Can I say, hand on heart, that there was absolutely no consideration of any party allegiances in appointing any of these roles? Probably not. But I can promise that it was way, way down the list of priorities. I believe this can be evidenced by the fact that 2 of the appointees came from opposition parties, which is 2 more than the outgoing administration appointed. I would like to thank Councillor Manton for giving me the opportunity to highlight this departure with past precedent.
Thank you. Councillor Manton, you may ask one supplementary question.
Thank you, Leader. I appreciate your honesty in that respect, but in the light of your answer, do you not think that it was unwise, or dare I say a folly, to pass over a highly interested candidate councillor who wanted the role of representative to the South Downs National Park Authority in favour of a less experienced candidate who, it has been reported, did not want this job?
Councillor Boffey.
I think it's quite folly to be making assertions about other people's ability to do their jobs when they've just taken it and have only just started work on it, to be honest with you. I don't really want to get into specifics of this person or that person, but I'm quite happy with the appointment I've made to the South Downs National Park Authority. It was very well considered and I'm very happy with my decision.
Councillor Manton, you may make a final statement.
Maximum of 5 minutes. Thank you again, Leader, for your answer to my previous question. It's disheartening to witness a decision made solely on political expediency, disregarding the importance of knowledge and experience. In making such choices, we risk compromising the quality and effectiveness of the decisions themselves. It is crucial that decisions of significance, particularly in the matters of South Downs National Park, are grounded in a solid understanding of the subject matter and guided by expertise. By prioritising political expediency over knowledge and experience, we undermine the very foundation of effective governance and decision making. This approach risks disregarding the expertise and insights of qualified individuals who possess valuable insights and perspectives. It is imperative that we hold our leaders accountable for making decisions based on informed judgment, drawing upon the wealth of knowledge and experience available to them. This not only ensures better outcomes, but also upholds the integrity and credibility of our political processes. Let us advocate for a system that values expertise, encourages evidence-based decision-making, and prioritises the long-term well-being and progress of our society. Only then can we build a future that truly benefits all individuals and upholds the principles of good governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manton. We have received a question on notice from Councillor Roger Knoll. Councillor Knoll, you have 2 minutes in which to ask Councillor Boffey, the Leader of the Council, your question.
Thank you, Chair. Following our recent council elections, the majority of this administration's members now represent wards in the north of the district, especially the Cabinet, who are almost exclusively Horsham town based. The previous administration contained members from the north and south of the district, with both sorry, I thought you said something. With both members and, the previous administration contained members from the north and south of the district, with both members and cabinet balanced between the town and rural areas. That cabinet were acknowledged as ever mindful of the concerns and interests of Horsham town, with an appointed cabinet member exclusively for the town. Can the leader or members of the cabinet indicate tonight how the concerns of the southern wards are to be given equal weight to the town wards, thereby fairly representing the balance of our district's residents? This is especially important to residents in the south, who have concerns over the Wilder Horsham district and the Ada restoration project, bearing in mind that under the previous administration there were several proposals to expand the Wilder district area, and will the same projected funding for this purpose be continued in the future?
Thank you, Councillor Boffey.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Knoll, for your question. Although I'm afraid I must begin my response by saying I don't accept the premise of your question. I think it seeks to create divisions where they either do not exist or are unnecessary. You start by saying that the majority of the new administration's members now represent wards in the north of the district. I'm not sure how you're defining administration here, but it's a simple fact that the Liberal Democrat group now enjoys a comfortable majority, but all but one of our members represent wards which many would view as the north of the district. I share your disappointment that we didn't have more seats in the south, but that is what it is. You go on to say that the Cabinet are almost entirely Horsham town based. This is inaccurate. The Cabinet contains members from Billingshurst Parish, Shipley Parish and North Horsham Parish, half of its members. You also claim that the previous Cabinet was ever mindful of the concerns and interests of Horsham Town. I'm sorry to say that both as a resident and a former neighbourhood council chairman in Horsham, that is not a claim that stands up to any kind of scrutiny, but I will not dwell on that now. Horsham Town needed a voice in Cabinet under the previous administration because, unlike the rest of the district, it is unparished. Facilities and services provided by parish councils elsewhere in the district are provided by Horsham District Council in the town. Therefore, those services could be chopped and changed or taken away on a whim by the Cabinet. It was therefore important for the town's voice to be heard in Cabinet in a way which was different from the rest of the district. Given the makeup of the new Cabinet, that is no longer necessary. In all other respects, we are one council representing one district. As a district, we have far more that unites us than divides us, and it is the responsibility of all members, inside and outside the Cabinet, to not only represent their wards, but also act in the best interests of the district as a whole. I would therefore expect the concerns of all wards, wherever they are situated in the district, to be given equal weight in the usual way by their local members raising such concerns both in council, in PDAGs or committees, or with Cabinet members directly on behalf of their residents and parish and neighbourhood councils. As to the final element of your question as originally drafted when submitted, I'm afraid you will need to elaborate on what the Wilder Horsham area is. If you're referring to the Wilder Horsham District Initiative, the clue is in the name. It should encompass the whole district, and that is certainly my aspiration for it. When it comes to projected funding into the future, I am similarly unclear exactly what you're referring to, but I will say this. At present, I only see expenditure on climate action and nature recovery going in one direction, and it's not down.
Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Leader. I am not going to ask a supplementary question. I'll save that for another time, but thank you very much for your clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Well, unless there is any urgent business, and I can't see any hands, so I'm going to urgently close this meeting. Thank you very much.